Hello Booktube, it's Leigh here, and today I'm bringing you a top 5 Wednesday. This week's topic is the top 5 books you read because of Booktube. This was an incredibly easy list to come up with. My answers are kind of a mix of things that I've enjoyed, things that I have partially enjoyed, and things I didn't really care for, but I read them all because of Booktube. So if you watch a lot of Booktube, you will probably notice that there are definitely books and authors who are wildly popular, and there's a lot of crossover in what people are reading, and it's a surprisingly kind of insular community in that regard, in that probably a bigger booktuber will read or rec a book, or a bunch of booktubers will all get sent the same arcs by the publishers, and so they'll all be talking about them, and it just trickles down until there's a lot of homogeny in what gets read and reviewed and wrecked around here. So is it any wonder that I picked up a lot of these books? No. And I would not be surprised if you have read a few of these too. So coming in at number 5, and this is a book that I was pretty glad that I picked up, and that is Soulless by Gail Carriger. At the time of filming this video, which is several weeks before it's going up, I had just finished reading this, and I've seen a lot of people talk about it. It was a hell of a lot of fun. I am like always there for a female protagonist who starts ripping off the hero's clothes, which ironically leads us right into number 4 on this list, which is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. Now, I am a huge fan of Naomi Novik's fan fiction. I have been following her for literally ages, but even though she's been publishing books for quite a few years now, starting with the Temeraire series, I never actually got around to reading any of her published fiction. One of the reasons for that is that I think, as far as I know, Temeraire and Uprooted are both books with straight relationships, and I just wasn't super into that. But when I saw a lot of people talking about Uprooted, and specifically Sam over on Thoughts on Tomes likes to talk about Uprooted and how much she really, really enjoys it, and the fact that it is a standalone book, I decided this year to go ahead and read it. And another thing that kind of prompted me to read this is, like I said, it's talked about quite frequently on Booktube. Some people seem to really like it, some people seem to really not like it, and I was really curious about that. I freaking loved it. It is easily in the top 5 books that I've read this year. I mean, it's fighting a little bit to stay in the top 5 just because I've read a lot. I've read so many good things, but it's fantastic. I didn't read it in one sitting because I couldn't, but I practically read it in one sitting. At least it felt like that. I devoured it. It was so good. I even went out and bought a brand new copy of it. I loved it that much, and I knew I was going to want to reread it. Then number 3 on this list is the answer that's like, I'm partially glad I read these, and I'm partially meh on it, and that is the whole Grisha universe by Leigh Bardugo. These are hugely popular. You do not need me to tell you that these are hugely popular. I started by reading Six of Crows earlier in the year, and Crooked Kingdom. Loved them. They're probably no longer in my top 5 books, but I really liked them, really enjoyed them. I still think very fondly back on Inej and Kaz, and I think they're really great characters. And then over the summer, I went ahead and I finally read the Grisha Trilogy, which I did not really love. As a whole, I would maybe give the trilogy like 3 stars. Because I hate the protagonist. I don't like Alina. I don't like Mal. I think the Darkling was underdeveloped and underused. He could have been interesting, but he ultimately wasn't. And really the only character I liked in that entire trilogy was Nikolai, and he, like, every time he was in a scene or a part of the action, he was really great. But he wasn't in enough of it to carry the books. I mean, he didn't even show up till book 2. Right? Yeah, he didn't show up till book 2. And he was absent for large parts of book 3. And it's very befuddling to me how poorly written the protagonists are in that trilogy, and why it's popular, because it is of a lesser quality. Like, sorry, but it is. It is more poorly written than Six of Crows. And the characters are much more poorly developed and very inconsistent, especially in comparison to Six of Crows. Like, it's very obvious that Leigh Bardugo can write really good characters. She just didn't in that original trilogy. And I wonder, in part, if that was because she was trying to emulate other fantasy books that were really popular. Because there's been a couple other fantasy YA books I've tried to read that are just not well written, and the characters are not coherent or consistent. And they feel a little bit like Alina. And so I wonder if she was just trying to right to the genre. And I mean, it became popular enough that in her second duology, she felt that she had the freedom to write however she wanted to write, and she wrote much better, more interesting, more consistent, and fleshed out characters. I don't know. I'm probably gonna like ruffle some feathers by saying the Grisha Trilogy is only mediocre, but that's how I feel about it, and I read it because of Booktube. Am I glad I read it? Honestly, I feel like I could have done with or without it. I don't think you need to read the Grisha Trilogy to read the Six of Crows duology, and I would highly recommend you start with the Six of Crows duology first. Okay, number 2 is I think they're called the Wayward Children's books. They're the Seanan McGuire books, Every Heart a Doorway, Down Among the Stick and Bones, etc. Everyone is reading them, and they're okay. I definitely gave the first one like 3.5 stars. I think I would give the second one 3.5 stars, but like I rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads just because I was like, it was fine. I don't think the endings of either of those books are very well done. I've talked about this in like my discussion video of Every Heart a Doorway, which I'll link above. I think she tries to introduce a really important theme that the whole ending like hinges on, but she introduces it way too late in both books. She doesn't foreshadow it well at all, and so it's very jarring, and the endings just don't have a kind of cohesive resonance with the rest of the book. She also spends a lot of time, especially in the second book, she spends a lot of time telling and not showing, which would be fine, except that she doesn't actually tell us her really important theme. I don't know why. So they're not bad. She has really great ideas. I don't think they're as great as everyone kind of makes them out to be, though. And I definitely only pick them up because they are so widely regarded and talked about on Booktube. Now, do I hope the next one in the series is better and that I really genuinely love it because it's about the character from the first book who I love the most? Yes, I genuinely hope so, but I don't know. I've kind of been let down both times before. And then, coming into number 1 is an author, and that's Victoria Schwab. Now, she's written a couple of series. I don't know what they're all called, This Savage Song, whatever that's part of. Songs and Monsters. I have no idea what that duology. I don't even know if it's a duology or trilogy. There's that. I've read This Savage Song. I did not read Our Dark Duet. There's the Darker Shades of Magic, or the Shades of Magic trilogy. I read all of that. She's got another like trilogy that's uncompleted, and then she's got another standalone book. I have not read either of those, and I will not be reading any more Victoria Schwab. She's incredibly, incredibly popular on Booktube. Everyone seems to love her. And I went in really expecting to love her books. I rated A Darker Shade of Magic and The Savage Song, I think both 4 stars. And honestly, looking back on that, I think that was more generous than either of them deserved. A Darker Shade of Magic has probably been rated down since then because I went through and I redid my ratings for all 3 of the books from the Shades of Magic trilogy after I read Conjuring of Light because I really didn't like Conjuring of Light. And I think I have a whole discussion video of that, which I will link above if you're at all interested. It's very spoilery though, I think. Point is, she's very, very popular. Everyone seems to just like love her books. But first of all, the Shades of Magic trilogy is not really an adult series. It's billed as an adult series, and it's written under her adult pen name, but it's really just a YA series with maybe, I don't even want to say it's a hair more violence than you'd find in other books, because it's certainly no more violent than the Six of Crows duology. They're on par with one another for like violence and content. I don't know what, like, they're pretending that it's adult, and it drives me nuts because I picked that series up because the second book, Gathering of Shadows, was nominated in the adult category for the Booktube SFF Awards this year, and it was up against The Obelisk Gate and 9 Fox Gambit, and it shouldn't have been there. It's nowhere near on par with those books in quality, scope, nuance, nowhere near them. Now, would it have fit fine in the YA category? Sure. I mean, it would have been up against Sarah J. Maas, where it probably deserves to be. Oh my gosh. I shouldn't rant about Victoria Schwab for too long, because I'll just alienate a bunch of people because I know everyone loves her, but her writing's only okay. She consistently guts her books of any sort of narrative tension because she reveals way too much, way too early to the reader, information that is not available to her characters. So you end up reading 400 pages waiting for the characters to catch up with what you already know is coming. And honestly, it makes their characters just kind of look dumb. And you feel like you're wasting your time because you're just like, so when are we going to get to the stuff that I know is coming? And her third book, A Conjuring of Light, desperately needed to be edited. When you read it, it's very clear that somewhere in the editing process, I suspect it was in the editing process, it was not in the original drafting process, someone pointed out that the entire point of that book hinges on a plot hole. And so she injected one throwaway line to try to fix the plot hole that you spent 200 plus pages reading, and it's just sloppy, and it has no tension because, again, too much is revealed to the reader that's withheld from the character, and the characters were annoying and a little wishy-washy in that book. And reading Conjuring of Light just really highlighted the problems in the rest of that trilogy. It has a great idea, but she really lost the whole thing about that trilogy that made it cool, which was the whole portal mage stuff. Reading it, like I said, reading Conjuring of Light just really made me reevaluate all the books and the writing and kind of my uneasy feelings about them, wherein I read them all really easily, like they were easy reads. I was kind of like, I mean, it was fine, it was entertaining, but is it good? Like I struggled with that, and Conjuring of Light just really helped me evaluate it. Go, no, they're not especially good. They're okay. They're really not more than okay on a real critical level. And that's fine, I think, if your characters are really good, but your characters are a mixed bag. I don't like Lila Bard. I don't like, what's his name? Kel. Kel is very inconsistent in the second and third books. And Alucard was great in the second book, but he was obnoxious, pain in the ass in the third book, which was, why? I don't know. Acting like a 13-year-old. And then this Savage Song is forgettable. I mean, it's okay. It's definitely a very young YA book, which is fine. And I think for a very young reader, like someone who's 10 to 14, I think it'd actually be really good. And as an adult, it just doesn't stick with me. I just have no interest in reading any more of her books. And I don't think I'm going to pick up any more of her books in going forward, because these things that I've read are her newer books. And if she's making these kind of ham-fisted mistakes in them that bug me as a reader, I don't really trust her to not continue to make them. Does that make sense? So anyways, I have rambled on way too long about how disappointing Schwab's work was. She seems like a nice person on Twitter. I know everyone loves her. Not for me, though. That's my list of books I've loved that I've read because of Booktube, books I've not really liked because of Booktube, that I've read, books I've not really liked that I've read because of Booktube. There's a lot more I could put on this list, but those are kind of the standout highlights. Let me know what you think of any of the books or the authors that I have mentioned. If you too have been suckered into reading them because of Booktube, let me know what are the sorts of things that watching Booktube has prompted you to pick up and read that you might not have otherwise. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.